During family dinner, Dad asked if my allowance was enough. When I said, "What allowance?" his face went pale. He froze with his fork halfway to his mouth, staring at me like he couldn't believe what I had just said. The room went quiet, only the sound of the clock ticking behind us. Mom's eyes darted between us, and she quickly reached for the breadbasket, pretending to change the subject. But Dad wasn't letting it go. "Emily," he said slowly, "you're telling me you haven't been getting the money I've been sending you every month?" I looked at him, completely lost. "What money?" "Dad, I don't know what you're talking about." He leaned back in his chair, his face draining of color. He asked again, firmer this time, if I had really never received anything. I shook my head. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Dad turned to Mom, his voice sharp now. "Linda, what's going on?" "I've been transferring $3,000 every month for Emily's college and living expenses. She says she hasn't seen a dime." My heart stopped. $3,000? Every month. My hands started shaking under the table. All this time, I had been working 2 jobs, coming home past midnight, collapsing from exhaustion, just trying to keep up with tuition and rent. I lived off instant noodles, skipped textbooks, and pawned old things just to survive. And now he was telling me there had been money all along, money I never saw. Mom cleared her throat and forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Maybe Emily forgot. Maybe she spent it and doesn't remember. "No." I cut in, my voice trembling but loud enough to shake the table. "I never got anything. Not once." Dad's knuckles went white as he gripped his glass. He looked at me, then back at Mom. His jaw clenched. "So where is it?" he asked, his voice low but shaking with anger. I sat frozen in my chair, everything spinning in my head. I thought about the nights I came home crying from my shift, the mornings I dragged myself to class without sleep. I thought about my sister, Ashley, always posting pictures from Paris, always dressed in designer clothes, always living the dream life I couldn't even imagine. And suddenly, the pieces started to fit together in a way that made my stomach twist. I swallowed hard, staring at my parents across the table. "Please stay with me as I tell you my story," I whispered to myself as much as to anyone listening. "And please don't forget to support our channel by subscribing, liking, and sharing with your loved ones." Dad's eyes were still locked on Mom, but mine were stuck on the truth that was just beginning to unravel. Something inside me knew this was only the beginning of the nightmare. Ashley sat across from me, twirling her wine glass like she was at some fancy party instead of our family table. She was 22, only a few years older than me, but the difference between our lives had always felt like an entire world. She had the trips to Paris, the shopping bags with names I could never pronounce, the perfect hair that came from expensive salons. I thought Dad just spoiled her more because she was older, maybe because she was the firstborn. I never liked it, but I told myself it was just how families worked. Now, with Dad staring at Mom and demanding answers, I realized every shiny gift Ashley had ever flaunted was bought with the money that was supposed to be mine. My stomach twisted as I remembered her laughing about shopping on the Champs-Élysées while I counted loose change for bus fare. Ashley leaned back in her chair and gave me a smirk that sent heat rushing to my face. It wasn't even guilt. It was pride, like she had won some game I didn't know I was playing. Mom placed a hand over Ashley's and said, "She deserves nice things. She's worked so hard." That nearly made me choke. Ashley hadn't worked a day in her life unless you counted deciding between red or black heels. Dad's jaw tightened as he listened. "Emily has been breaking her back while you both live off what was meant for her," he said, his voice low but shaking with anger. Ashley rolled her eyes like he was being dramatic. "Dad, relax. I needed it. You wouldn't want me looking cheap in front of my friends, would you?" The way she said it, like my father's money existed only to serve her vanity, made my hands curl into fists under the table. I wanted to scream, but the words stuck in my throat. Every long night, every tear shed over bills I couldn't pay, every class I sat through hungry, all of it fueled Ashley's lifestyle. And she looked at me now like I was nothing but the shadow in her spotlight. Dad turned to me, his face softening for just a moment, then back at Ashley and Mom with fury in his eyes. "This ends tonight," he said firmly. His voice cut through the silence, heavy enough to make my chest tighten. Ashley smirked again, clearly believing she'd find a way out, but I could feel the shift in the room. Years of unfairness had piled up, and I wasn't going to sit quietly anymore. The truth was out, and for the first time, Ashley's perfect little world had cracks showing through. I sat there gripping the edge of my chair, feeling the anger that had been building for years rise like a storm. Nothing about our family dinner would ever be the same again. I used to think exhaustion was normal, that everyone my age felt like their body might give out at any moment. I balanced trays in a crowded diner until my arms shook, smiling at strangers while my legs burned from standing 12 hours straight. When my shift ended, I hurried across town to clean offices at night. The smell of bleach clung to my hands, and sometimes I was so tired I forgot if I'd already locked the doors behind me. My whole life felt like an endless loop of work, class, and empty stomachs. Dinner breaks rarely existed. Most nights, I poured hot water over a packet of noodles and called it a meal. Some days I didn't eat at all, convincing myself coffee counted as food. My clothes hung looser, my skin paler, but I pushed through because I believed I had no choice. Every dollar mattered, and still it was never enough. Rent was late more times than I cared to admit, and textbooks sat on shelves I couldn't afford to buy from. While I counted coins at the laundromat, Ashley returned from another vacation with glossy shopping bags. She'd laugh while telling me stories about luxury stores, dropping more money on a purse than I'd see in months. I forced smiles, telling myself Dad just liked to reward her more. I never complained, because I didn't want to seem jealous. I swallowed the unfairness until it became part of me. I remember pawning the necklace my grandmother gave me just to cover a school fee. It was the last piece of jewelry I had left, and I cried in the shop when I handed it over. That night I sat on the floor of my apartment, clutching the receipt like it was proof I hadn't completely fallen apart. The toll showed in my body. My hands shook while carrying trays, and I often stumbled from dizziness. Once, I fainted in the locker room after work, waking up on the floor with a coworker fanning me. I laughed it off, but inside I was terrified. I wondered how long I could keep going before something broke for good. And through it all, Mom watched. She knew. She saw me dragging myself home, barely able to stand, and said nothing. She hugged Ashley in her designer clothes, praising her for looking so grown up, while I stood in thrift store jeans with holes at the knees. Every sacrifice I made, every hour I gave away to survive, she let it happen. She allowed me to suffer while she handed my future over to Ashley. That realization cut deeper than the hunger or the exhaustion ever could. It wasn't just money stolen, it was years of my life. My own mother chose to watch me struggle when she could have stopped it. That betrayal sat heavy in my chest, harder to carry than any tray of plates I ever held. Dad's voice cracked through the silence, louder than I had ever heard it before. His hand slammed against the table, rattling the dishes. "Where is the money I've been sending for Emily?" His face was red, his eyes locked on Mom like he didn't even recognize her anymore. Mom didn't answer at first. She shifted in her chair, avoiding his gaze, her fingers fidgeting with her napkin. The room grew heavy, the kind of silence that makes your ears ring. Finally, she muttered, "I gave it to Ashley." The words hit me harder than any slap. My chest tightened so badly I thought I couldn't breathe. Dad stared at her, stunned. "You did what?" Mom straightened her shoulders, trying to sound calm, as if her decision made perfect sense. "Ashley needed it. She deserves nice things. She's the face of this family. Emily is tough, she'll manage without help." My throat burned hearing her say it out loud. It wasn't just that she had stolen from me, it was the fact that in her eyes, I didn't matter as much. To her, my pain was acceptable as long as Ashley sparkled. Dad's voice shook with rage. "Manage? She's been working herself half to death while you've been pouring her money into shopping bags and vacations for Ashley. Do you have any idea what you've done?" Mom flinched at his tone but held firm. "I only did what I thought was best. Ashley has a future. People look up to her. She can't be seen wearing cheap clothes." I stared at her in disbelief. Her future? What about mine? I felt the ground slipping away beneath me, realizing my own mother had weighed us on a scale and decided I was worth less. Ashley, instead of shrinking back, leaned forward with a smug smile. "Dad, stop yelling. You don't get it. I needed that money. Do you want me to look like some nobody in front of my friends? I couldn't survive if people thought I was poor." Her words made bile rise in my throat. She talked about surviving, while I had scraped pennies together just to eat. Dad turned toward her, his voice booming now. "You stole from your sister. Do you even understand that?" Ashley shrugged, unconcerned. "It's not my fault she couldn't keep up. I put that money to better use." The air felt thick, like all the years of pretending we were a normal family had cracked open at once. Mom's eyes darted nervously between Dad and Ashley, but she never looked at me. She didn't even try. Dad sat back, shaking his head, the weight of betrayal heavy in his eyes. I could see something breaking in him, a trust he'd carried for decades now torn to pieces. And as for me, I sat frozen, each word from their mouths cutting deeper, proving that love in this house had never been equal. I couldn't sit there another second. My chair scraped loudly against the floor as I pushed back, and without looking at anyone, I walked out. My chest was tight, my hands were shaking, and every step felt like I was dragging chains behind me. I made it to the front porch before the tears finally spilled. The night air was cool, but it did nothing to calm the storm inside me. The door opened behind me. Dad's footsteps followed quickly, and then his hand touched my shoulder. His voice was softer than I'd ever heard it. "Emily, I'm so sorry. I should have asked you directly all this time. I trusted blindly, and you paid the price." I wiped at my face, unable to look at him. "Do you know what it was like for me?" My words cracked. "I thought you didn't care. I thought I wasn't worth it." His face twisted with guilt. No, don't think that. You were always my priority. I wanted to give you a chance to focus on school, not on survival. And now I see how badly I failed you." His voice broke on the last word. I shook my head. "It's not your fault. You didn't know." But even as I said it, the ache in my chest grew deeper because someone had known. Dad took my hand and squeezed it firmly. "I'll make this right. I don't care what it takes. I won't let this continue." His tone left no room for doubt. Behind us, the door creaked open again. Mom's voice rang out, sharp and defensive. "Emily, don't twist things. You're turning your father against us. You're making him believe you're some kind of victim." The words sliced through me. I spun around, meeting her eyes, and for the first time I didn't hold back. "Stop. Don't you dare blame me. You watched me break my back. You let me suffer while Ashley lived like a queen. And now you're angry because the truth is out." Her mouth opened like she wanted to argue, but I didn't let her speak. My voice shook, but it carried all the weight of years I had bottled up. "You don't love me. If you did, you wouldn't have chosen her over me every single time." Her face hardened, and in that moment I saw it clearly. There was nothing in her eyes for me, no softness, no regret. Just coldness. I turned back toward Dad, who looked at her with the same disbelief I felt. He pulled me close, shielding me with his arms as if to prove where he stood. For the first time, I realized I had nothing left to hold on to when it came to my mother. Whatever bond was supposed to be there was gone, and I wasn't going to beg for it anymore. That night, standing on the porch under the dim light, I knew the family I thought I had no longer existed. The next morning, Dad asked me to meet him in his study. He closed the door behind us, his face grim. Without saying a word, he opened a drawer and pulled out a thick stack of papers. He spread them across the desk, and as my eyes scanned the pages, my heart pounded. They were bank records, each transfer carefully listed. Every month for years, he had wired $3,000 under my name. The amount stretched across the pages like a cruel timeline of everything I had lost. "Add it up," Dad said quietly, sliding a pen toward me. My hands shook as I started to do the math. The total climbed higher and higher until it landed on a number that made me dizzy. Nearly $150,000. Gone. Not just numbers on a page. Gone from my education, my health, my peace of mind. I leaned back in the chair, my throat dry. "That's my future," I whispered. She handed it all to Ashley like it was pocket change. Dad rubbed his forehead, his expression dark. "I can't believe I trusted her with this. I thought I was doing right by you, and instead I've been feeding Ashley's closet." A fire burned in my chest. For the first time, I wasn't just hurt, I was angry. Angrier than I'd ever been. This wasn't an accident. Mom had chosen to take everything from me and give it to my sister, knowing what it would do to me. And Ashley, she had smiled in my face, knowing I was drowning while she lived in luxury. I looked at Dad, my voice steady for the first time since dinner. "We can't let them get away with this." His eyes met mine, and for a moment I saw the same storm brewing in him. "No, we won't." From that day, the transfers changed. Instead of going through Mom, Dad arranged everything directly with me. When the first deposit hit my account, I stared at the balance for a long time, almost unable to believe it. Relief mixed with rage. The money wasn't just about bills anymore. It was about justice. But I knew it wasn't enough to just start fresh. If I stayed quiet, Mom and Ashley would go on pretending nothing had happened. They would brush it off, twist the story, maybe even paint me as ungrateful. No, they needed to be exposed, and not in whispers or private arguments. They had to face what they'd done in a way no excuses could cover. Lying awake that night, I thought about every sacrifice I had made, every tear, every humiliating moment when I begged for extra shifts or sold the little I owned. Ashley had paraded through life on stolen money, and Mom had let her. The thought made my stomach churn. I clenched my fists under the blanket, the decision sealing itself inside me. I wasn't going to walk away quietly. I wasn't going to carry their shame in silence. They had taken my years, but I would take back my voice. They would see what it felt like when lies collapsed under the weight of truth. When I finally drifted off to sleep, I felt something new. Not peace, not happiness, but determination. The kind that sharpens pain into a weapon. This wasn't over. Not even close. The next weekend, the family gathered at my aunt's house for Sunday dinner. The table was full, cousins laughing, uncles trading stories, the smell of roast filling the air. For a little while, I almost forgot the storm hanging over us. But then Ashley walked in, late as always, wearing a new coat with a bright designer logo stitched across the front. She dropped her bag in the chair beside her, and sighed like she had just stepped off a runway. "Oh, you wouldn't believe Paris this time of year," she said loudly, making sure every ear in the room caught her words. "The shops were amazing. I had to buy extra luggage just to bring everything back." I bit the inside of my cheek, forcing myself to smile. My heart pounded, but I kept my voice light. "Really? That sounds expensive. How did you manage all that shopping?" Ashley tossed her hair and grinned, clearly thrilled to have the spotlight. "You know me. I always find a way." She leaned closer, lowering her voice just enough to sound secretive, but not so quiet that the others couldn't hear. "Besides, Dad makes sure I'm taken care of." The room went still for a beat. I pretended to be curious, tilting my head. "What do you mean by that?" "He just hands you money to spend on clothes." Ashley laughed, flicking her wrist like it was obvious. "Of course. He's been funding my wardrobe for years. How else do you think I keep up with the girls in my circle? You can't show up in Paris looking like a bargain bin." Across the table, Dad's fork froze in midair. His eyes cut to mine, sharp and knowing. My stomach tightened, but I didn't look away. I asked again, sweetly this time. "So all those bags, all those trips, that was Dad's money?" Ashley's grin widened. She clearly thought she was making herself look impressive. "Exactly. I mean, I could never pull this off without him. He gets it. He knows I need to look the part. Not everyone can handle that kind of responsibility, but he trusts me." A couple of relatives exchanged looks, their smiles fading. My aunt's eyebrows rose slightly, and one of my cousins let out a low whistle. The attention Ashley had been craving suddenly shifted into something else, suspicion. Dad cleared his throat but didn't speak. Instead, he looked at me again, and in that brief glance, everything was clear. The trap had been set. Ashley had spilled the truth herself, in front of witnesses who would remember every word. I pushed my chair back slightly, my pulse racing. I didn't need to say more. Ashley had done the work for me. Her pride, her arrogance, it had opened the door wide enough. The only thing left now was to walk through it. The laughter that filled the house earlier had been replaced with whispers, side glances, and a silence that pressed down like a weight. Ashley, too caught up in her own performance, didn't notice. But I knew. This was the moment everything began to turn. After the tension at my aunt's house, Dad decided the time had come to lay everything out. He called another family gathering the following weekend, but this one was different. He didn't say it was for dinner or celebration. His voice on the phone had been stern, leaving no room for excuses. By the time everyone arrived, the room was filled with quiet anticipation. Plates of food sat untouched on the table as Dad stood at the head, his hands gripping a folder thick with papers. He cleared his throat, the sound heavy in the silence. "I've been keeping something to myself for too long," he began, his tone steady but hard. "And it's time everyone here knows the truth." All eyes turned to him. My stomach knotted as I sat near the end of the table, bracing for what I knew was coming. Dad opened the folder and pulled out the statements I had seen earlier in his study. He held them up so everyone could see. "For years, I have sent money each month to support Emily. Money meant to pay her tuition, her living costs, to give her a fair start in life. $3,000 every month." The room buzzed instantly, shocked murmurs, widened eyes. But Dad didn't stop. He placed the papers on the table for anyone to read. That money never reached her. It was taken and used elsewhere. By Linda and Ashley. Gasps echoed around the room. My cousins leaned closer, whispering in disbelief. My uncle shook his head, muttering, "Unbelievable." My aunt covered her mouth with her hand. The weight of their judgment filled the space, pressing down on all of us. Mom shifted in her chair, her face pale but defiant. That's not the whole story, she snapped. Emily's been exaggerating. She's trying to make herself look like a victim, turning her father against the rest of us. Dad's eyes narrowed. Don't lie, Linda. The evidence is right here. He tapped the papers, his voice firm. Every transfer is documented. There's no mistake. Emily was robbed, and you know it. Mom's lips tightened, but she said nothing more. Her gaze darted to the side, as if searching for someone to defend her. Ashley, who had been sitting smugly at first, suddenly shifted uncomfortably. Her confident mask slipped as the whispers grew louder around her. She pushed back her chair, her voice rising. So what if I use the money? Do you expect me to apologize for wanting a better life? You gave me those things, Mom. You told me I deserved them. Her words spilled out in anger, her hands shaking as she pointed at both of them. You can't suddenly turn on me now. I didn't take it myself. You handed it over. The room grew colder, every relative staring at her in disbelief. Her polished image, the one she had built for years, cracked in an instant. What once made her enviable now made her shameful. Dad didn't flinch under her yelling. He stood taller, his voice steady as he said, It ends today. No more secrets. Everyone here knows what you did. Ashley's face reddened, her chest heaving as she glared at both parents, but the damage was done. She had exposed herself, and no one in that room would ever see her the same again. The days after that gathering felt different. For the first time, Dad stopped talking about fixing things in vague promises and started taking real action. He met with a lawyer, explaining everything, showing the transfers, the records, the proof. I sat beside him through those meetings, listening as the lawyer assured him there were legal steps to protect what remained of my funds. Hearing those words gave me a sense of security I hadn't felt in years. Dad made sure from then on, nothing went through Mom's hands again. My future was finally safe. News of what happened spread quickly through the family. Relatives who once greeted Mom with smiles now kept their distance. She used to walk into gatherings with confidence, but now she avoided eye contact, shrinking in her seat while people whispered around her. I saw the shift in how they looked at her, like trust had been snapped in two and could never be repaired. She tried to speak up once, saying she had only been doing what she thought was right, but no one listened anymore. The respect she used to enjoy was gone. Ashley's fall was even harder. She had lived so long on her image, glamorous, untouchable, admired. But when her friends realized the designer shoes, the vacations, the shopping trips had all been paid for with money stolen from me, the admiration vanished. Invitations stopped arriving. Calls went unanswered. She once boasted about her inner circle, but now she sat alone. The same people who once clung to her drifted away, unwilling to be connected to the lies that had been exposed. Watching all this unfold didn't erase my pain, but it gave me something I had been missing for years, a sense that balance had finally shifted. They could no longer pretend. Their glittering world was stripped away, leaving only the truth. Mom was no longer the admired matriarch, and Ashley was no longer the golden child. Meanwhile, I began to breathe differently. For the first time, I could open my fridge and see real food instead of just cheap noodles. I bought the textbooks I needed without pawning my belongings. My body started to recover. I slept longer, ate better, and walked into classes with clearer focus. The dark circles under my eyes began to fade. Slowly, I felt myself returning to the person I was supposed to be before all this weight was piled on me. It wasn't instant, and the hurt didn't disappear overnight. Betrayal leaves marks that time alone can't erase. But while Mom avoided the family and Ashley sulked in her emptiness, I built forward. My focus shifted from what I had lost to what I could still achieve. The cracks they left in me didn't close completely, but they became reminders of how strong I had been forced to become. Justice didn't look like revenge in movies. It looked like freedom, freedom from their control, freedom from lies, and freedom to finally live a life that was mine. I agreed to see them one last time, not because I needed answers, but because I wanted closure. We met in the living room of the house I grew up in. The silence between us was heavy until Mom finally broke it. Her voice trembled as she reached for me. Emily, please. I made mistakes. I didn't mean to hurt you. Can't you forgive me? Her words washed over me, but they didn't touch me anymore. I had carried too much pain for too long to be moved by sudden regret. Before I could reply, Ashley leaned forward, her tone sharp and impatient. You've got the money now, so stop acting like a victim. If Dad's giving you everything, then I deserve my share too. Her demand sounded almost desperate, like she still believed the world owed her. I looked at both of them, calmer than I ever expected to feel. No, I said firmly. I won't forgive what you did, and I won't give you another cent. You both took enough from me. That ends here. Ashley's face twisted with anger, but Dad stepped closer, his presence solid beside me. His voice was steady. Emily doesn't owe you anything. Not anymore. For the first time, I felt the power shift fully in my direction. I wasn't the girl begging for scraps of affection or struggling for recognition. I stood as my own person, stronger because of what I had survived. Walking out of that house, I felt lighter. The betrayal had cut me deeply, but it no longer defined me. I was no longer in Ashley's shadow, no longer weighed down by my mother's choices. The future was mine, and they were left to face the emptiness their greed had created. Do you think I made the right choice by walking away from my mom and sister for good, or should I have given them another chance? I'd really like to hear what you think. Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more stories like mine, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss one.